Hi, welcome back to the Box of Lights game channel. In this series we're playing War of the Ring 2nd edition. This is primarily a two-player game, but what I'd like to do, and a lot of people have been asking for this, is kind of run a playthrough as a tutorial. What I don't want to do is go through all the rules in detail, but rather we'll learn to play as we play. So let's start by opening the box, taking a look at the components and getting set up to play. First thing we'll do is get the board set up, and it comes in two pieces because it's a huge board, and yeah, I've got a white chart here to get it all in. Step 2 is to take the ring bearer's figure and place it on Rivendell, which is up here. This is Frodo and Sam ready to commence their journey towards Mount Doom, where they want to destroy the One Ring. Next we need to place the Fellowship progress counter and the corruption counter on the Fellowship track at the top of the board. I'm going to start both of these on the 0 spot. So this is the corruption counter and this is the Fellowship counter. The Fellowship counter's got two sides, with this side showing the Fellowship is revealed and with this side showing the Fellowship is hidden. So it's going to start hidden on the 0 spot. This Fellowship track's got spots from 0 to 12. And this is going to record how far away the Fellowship has travelled from their last known location. Right, so when you're playing the good guys, the free peoples, as they're called in this game, you're going to be moving the Fellowship, but kind of secretly, without the shadow player. So they're the people who are playing Sauron and Saruman and the Orcs and the Nazgûl, all those guys, without the shadow player knowing where you are. And this track will say how far away we are. This corruption counter is going to reflect how much the ring bearers are suffering, and the idea of the shadow player is to get this corruption up to 12 and they'll win the game. There's two other ways of winning, and that's for the free people's player if they get 4 victory points, and for the shadow player if they get 10 victory points. So we've got these victory point markers. We're going to just place these down here ready to use. How do you claim victory points? We will look at it in detail, but there's locations around the map, there's settlements here, like Dal Amroth or Pelagria, and they're worth victory points. This one's worth 2, this one's worth 1, okay? But we'll get into that once we start learning how to play. Next step is to take all these character cards, these blue ones, and these are going to represent all the people that, if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings, you'll be familiar with the Fellowship of the Ring. So we have Frodo and Sam here, Gimli, Merry, Legolas, Aragorn, Boromir, Pippin, and Gandalf. And there's 3 cards here that we need to remove, and these are kind of power-ups for Gandalf and Aragorn. So we remove Aragorn, heir to Isildur, and we remove Gandalf the White, and we also remove Gollum, and they're not out of the game, we're going to place them at the side of the board because these are going to get played at some point later, and there's different conditions about when these cards can come into play, and hopefully we'll see that as the game progresses. Right, so let's remove those for now. Then we're going to take the remaining 8 cards, I'm going to form a pile, and we're going to place Gandalf the Grey on the top, face up. The card that's face up in this deck is always what's called the guide. He's the person leading the Fellowship. Right, we're going to take these cards in a stack and we're going to place them up here in the Guide of the Fellowship box. Next we need to get out the figures that represent each of those characters that are in the Fellowship. And they have a token also to represent each one of these, so they might be familiar to you. There's also a little figure here for Gollum. He's going to stay at the side of the board until he's ready to come into play. And we've also got 2 extra tokens, one for the upgraded Gandalf the White, and one for the upgraded Aragorn, heir to Isildur. So we put these off to the side for now. And these tokens on the reverse have a ring figure, and what we need to do is give these a little bit of a shuffle, form them into a stack, and then place them up here in the Fellowship of the Ring box. And these companion figures, they need to go in the Fellowship of the Ring box too. Next we have to take these 3 Elven ring counters, and we need to place these in the Free People's Elven Rings box, which is up here. And we should place these face up. There's a reverse side. When you use these rings, they go to the Shadow player, but for now they're face up in the Free People's Elven Rings box. There's also 3 character cards for the Shadow player, and again we're going to set these aside for the beginning of the game. These are called minions for the Shadow player, so we have the Mouth of Sauron, Saruman and the Witch King. They're going to start the game out of play. There's figures for these 3 as well, and again they'll just stay out of play until these minions are ready to come into play. Now we can place out the rest of our cards. We've got a massive stack of cards here. These are called event cards. Red back for the Shadow player, blue back for the Free People's player. And there's 2 types of cards. There's character events and strategy events. And we need to sort those into 2 piles and give them a shuffle. Okay. Once they're all shuffled up, the Free People's players' cards go here. And the Shadows players' cards here on the bottom right. Now we need to grab the hunt tiles. These are they. There's 2 sets of hunt tiles. There's the special hunt tiles, which are red and blue faced. We need to set those aside for now. And then there's the standard hunt tiles, and these have got this beige face. What we need to do is mix those up and place them in an opaque container so that you can draw them randomly during the game. I'm going to place mine in this drawstring bag. And this becomes known as the hunt pool. Now we need to grab our action dice. The Free People's player starts with 4 action dice, these blue ones, and the Shadow player starts with 7 of the red action dice. The rest can be earned during the game, and they get earned when each one of our characters come into play. So we'll set these aside for now. We also have 5 combat dice come with the game. But the first customization you're going to see during this playthrough is I'm going to use 5 blue dice for the Free People's player and 5 red dice for the Shadow player as their combat dice. And I want them to have separate combat dice because I think it helps better explain how to play the game. So I'm going to remove these standard combat dice from the game, and you're going to see me using these ones that I've pulled in from elsewhere during the playthrough. Next we move over to the right side of the board and we go to something called the political track. And on here we need to lay out the political counters. There's 3 counters for each of the Shadow players' nations. And on this political track it gives you a clue as to where their starting spots are. Each of these tokens has a beige reverse side and a red front side. This is called the active side and this is called the passive side. Okay, and this kind of reflects the status of these nations. All the Shadow player nations start active, and we place the Isengard marker here, the Sauron marker here, and the Southron's and Easterlings marker here. For the Free Peoples, 4 are in this box and 1 is in this box. And all of these, except for the elves, start passive. Only the elves begin the game active. As the game progresses, these political tokens are going to move down towards the at war spot. Only active nations can move into the at war box. For as long as they're passive, they're what we call non-belligerent, right? But they're not at war if they're up here. For as long as they're passive, they can't move into this spot. So there's just certain events that can trigger a nation to become active, alright? And there's certain actions that can be used to move nations towards the at-war spot. We'll talk more about what that means once we get into the gameplay. Right, we're nearly there. The final step is we need to place our armies on the board in their starting locations. First, let me show you some of these figures. Each nation has 3 types of figures. Here's the dwarves. The first thing you're going to notice, I've got another, this is my second customization. I've put this coloured strip around the bottom of each of our figures, and that's really to help me because I'm not familiar with Lord of the Rings and what each one of these figures represents. So I can see that's a dwarf. I'm not that daft, but the dwarves have a brown coloured nation, so I've put a brown stripe around the bottom of their figures. So when you get the game, you won't have these customizations, right? But it's just to help me and hopefully help you see what's going on during this video series. Okay, so where were we? Right, so each nation has 3 types of figures. We have regulars, we have elites, and we have leaders. We're going to learn more about what they mean once we get into the gameplay, but for now all you need to know is that these smaller guys are regulars, the larger blue figures are elites, and the grey coloured figures are leaders. These are our elves, and they have a light green colour, so our regular, our elites, and our leaders. This is Gondor, and they're dark blue, so regulars, elites, and leaders. And this is the north, in the light blue colour. Okay, regulars, elites, leaders. And finally, for the free peoples, we have Rohan, and they're in dark green. For the shadow player, the Nazgul, or the ring wraiths, they act as leaders for each of the shadow player armies. So the individual nations of the shadow player don't have individual leaders, but each nation still has regular and elite units in their armies. So this is Isengard, regulars and elites, and they're yellow. These are the Sauron, regular and elites, they're red. And these are the Southron and Easterling, regulars and elites. They're an orange coloured nation, but hopefully they're distinct enough that you can tell them apart, so I didn't actually put an orange band around them. So for this part of the setup, what we need to do is refer to the rule book here, and it gives you the army setup for the free peoples and the shadow player. So for example, for the dwarves, it says that Erebor starts with 1 regular, 2 elite, and 1 leader. So we'll find Erebor on the map, which happens to be up here, and we'll place 1 regular, 2 elites, and 1 leader in this region. You can see our regions are separated by these white lines. So I'm going to continue to work my way through this setup, and then you'll see in just a moment the whole board set up with its starting armies. Okay, there we are then, that's everything set up. Now you can see that the Shadow Army is much more massive than the Free Peoples, and remember the Shadow Army begins active. Let's remind ourselves of the victory conditions for this game so we can figure out exactly what our strategy should be as we head into the first turn. The Free Peoples must guide the Ring Bearers with the aid of the Fellowship from Rivendell, up here in the north, all the way to Mount Doom, and through the gates of Minas Morgul or Maranon here. There's only 2 ways in. There's black lines are impassable borders. Ring bearers must drop the ring into the fiery depths through the crack of doom. Meanwhile, the shadow player must try and corrupt the ring bearers until they reach point 12 on the corruption track and seek out and find the ring. Alternatively, either the free players or the shadow player can seek a military victory so they can forget about the ring, and the free people's player can win the game with 4 victory points and the shadow player with 10 victory points, and they'll earn those victory points by capturing cities and strongholds. Join me next time as we begin turn 1 of War of the Ring.